Good afternoon. After losing power this morning, I had a tree fall on a power line, and we decided that we would go ahead and record this webinar again here this afternoon to be able to share with you guys without any, hopefully, interruptions and better video quality. So for the guys that was able to see it all this morning, sorry for the technical difficulties, but appreciate your patience. And we'll get this started here. So my name is Mike Swigman. I'm here to discuss the acquisition of Capstan. We was able to offer ARAG products now to all of our dealers and customers, and kind of just want to touch base with a real quick overview of what ARAG can help us bring to the table. As everybody knows, Capstan Ag has always been very innovative company when it comes to pulse width modulation or PWM technology within the industry. We were the innovators of it 30 years ago, and been kind of developing and staying on the cutting edge as we're going through history here, going through the future. Now that we're kind of partners with ARAG, they bring a bunch of different products to the table, and kind of want to go through. We are through their portfolio and express we are two different brands, but we're one team here in the U.S. market and around the world, and excited for what they have to offer. So to start with, ARAG's portfolio they got a lot of stuff, right? They have things that go all over your sprayer to liquid application, everything from controllers to plumbing fittings, even stuff for your planters, stuff for toolbars, all kinds of different technology equipment. So that's what we're going to kind of touch base with today. As you can see here, we have different control systems they have. We're going to break into a little bit more detail about them. They have smart components such as flow meters for row monitoring to your standard flow meter you need for application for your sprayer or planter, whatever you're doing liquid with. They have fill flow meters that can count up gallons, or you can control how much product goes into your tank. Ball valves, servo valves, pressure relief valves. So we'll kind of touch base on some of that here real quickly in the future, and then also just through some of the kind of plumbing fittings. So typical sprayer diagram here, we got a tank and a rinse tank, and it's just a typical plumbing stuff for any sort of sprayer, regardless how you're doing it. So start out with here, we got our tank accessories. That's going to include maybe a tank lid, maybe a basket strainer going into the bottom or going into the top of it. We have our anti-vortex fitting that goes in the bottom of the tank, so that way it doesn't create a whirlwind and cause, cavitation or suction of air into your pump inlet. They have agitation equipment, not equipment, but fittings to be able to go into your tank. And then all kinds of other fittings as far as rinsing and then just connecting to it as well. Next, we're going to talk about ball valves. Just your standard hand ball valves, is manual ball valves to divert flow to go if you want to go from your tank to your pump, or from a rinse tank to your pump. Maybe it's the agitation. The valves can be two ways, where it's in and out, just on and off flow. They have three-way valves where you can divert, the flow comes in the bottom and it goes to the right or to the left. And then it can also come in the side, and it can go to the right or the left, or maybe even both if it's the handle set at a 45. They got five-way valves even. So the versatility that they have with manual ball valves is pretty intensive. They also have a mixer or an inductor, chemical inductor. So they have two different models. They have a 5-gallon and an 8-gallon. It uses a vortex to be able to suck the chemical in as you dump it into the tank. And then they have hand valves on the side that allow you to rinse your chemical tank out, and then your chemical container, and then also your mixing tank as well. Uses the fresh water to be able to do that. And then plumbing strainers or filters, they have suction filters that's specifically designed to go on the suction side of the pump. It's actually you can take the cap off without shutting your tank off. It's got its own little check valve inside of it. Also have pressure filters, different fitting types, different meshes. Everything's pretty customizable. And then your nozzle bodies, they got quite a different selection of nozzle bodies to offer, whether if it's 3 ways, 5 ways. Um, they got right hand, left hand. They also have ones that, for dry booms, you can hook hoses to various hose sizes. So quite the offering of different versatility of different nozzle bodies to go on different types of sprayers. And then finally, the manifold assemblies for your sprayer, from everything from the ball valves for your section control, flow meters, filters, servo valves, pressure relief valves, and then something we don't see a lot here in the U.S., except for orchard sprayers maybe, is that valve on the very end there on the right. That is a master shutoff valve, or it's kind of like a recirculation valve. So when you hit your master switch, that opens up and dumps the flow back to your tank, so that way you don't overpressurize the system, especially if you're utilizing like a high pressure, or not high pressure, but a positive displacement pump. So we're going to kind of break these up, and I'm going to talk a little bit about everything that they have here that they have to offer. We're going to start with a flow meter. They have 2 different flow meters that they offer. They have an electromagnetic flow meter, and they have a paddle flow meter. The electric magnetic flow meter is becoming more popular, and here's several OEMs are starting to use them now. And the way that it works is that it uses the liquid that's flowing through it as the conductor. And then it creates a magnetic field on the outside of the pipe. And as that conductor, or the liquid, or your product, as it flows through that magnetic field, it generates a small voltage. And then that voltage is then picked up with little electrodes that's mounted on a pipe wall. It detects that voltage and converts it into a flow rate that's going to output that signal to your rate controller. Then the second one that they have to offer is a paddle flow meter. So the paddle flow meter is very similar to a turbine flow meter. It's going to take water flow to spin something, and then that, in this instance, it is a little paddle wheel inside of there. It's kind of like your old grist mill. That paddle is spinning, and as it's got metal in it, and it reads up against a sensor, and that sensor will create a frequency, and then that frequency will then be communicated to your rate controller, so that way you'll be able to your rate controller will be able to see how much product is flowing through it. One thing that's unique about ARAG's with flow meters or paddle flow meters is that it can be cleaned very simply. The turbine flow meter, like everybody else is, that are using these turbine flow meters in the industry, you have to pull the whole flow meter out, kind of look through it, blow through it, which I don't recommend, put water through it to be able to clean it out. With this paddle flow meter that ARAG has, you can unscrew this cap right here, and then you see here I got it blowed up, or you can see that paddle. So that paddle is the only mechanical device in the system, and it can actually be replaced without replacing the whole flow meter if you would have a failure or something would happen. But you can also take it out and clean debris out of it to, if debris happens, whether if it's atrazine, sand, or some clay-based product, it's built up in there over time. It's very easy to maintain this and clean it if you do have that problem. The flow meters come in several different flow rates and sizes, just like everybody else. The Orion flow meters, or your electromagnetic flow meters, they once again come in different sizes, and it's standardly they're going to come with a 2-inch standard port or a 2-inch full port flange fittings like we're used to. But they also offer their fork fittings. Their fork fittings is a O-ring fitting that pushes together, and then you have a fork that holds them tight, so you don't have to have a special gasket and clamp and try to get everything tightened up. You just push it on, and it's kind of like a quick connect, and then a fork holds it tight. But they do make adapters. If you don't want to change your fittings in your hose, they make adapters to be able to go to your flange fittings from your fork fittings, as you see kind of there pictured on the right. Different flow rates, comparable to what's out on the market. They have 1.3 to 26 gallons a minute, their smallest one, all the way up to 210 gallons a minute on their paddle flow meters. And then the Orions are, up to 158 gallons. They also have another one I don't have pictured here that is a 3-inch a 3-inch full port flow meter that goes up to like 600 gallons a minute or 600 liters a minute. It's like 300 and some odd gallons a minute or something. It's more for a fill flow meter than anything else. But the this is a cross-reference guide to kind of look to see, to give some comparisons. So be on the lookout for this to be published for our dealers and growers to be able to see, just to have some comparisons of what would work for you. That also comes with our fittings as well. They make all the standard fittings that you find in Banjo makes or Hypro makes. We have the flange fittings that go to the hose barb, the push to connects, couplers, your standard MPT to hose barb or MPT fittings. So we're working on that cross-reference guide as well to get to make it easier for people to find components that they need. Next, we're going to talk about the servo valve. So your servo valve or your proportional valve is going to be what's going to adjust the amount of flow going back to your tank to maintain either rate or your pressure, depending on what kind of rate controller you have. So they have different ones, different flow rates. You just have to get on the website or get with the catalog. If you need a catalog, reach out to your capstan guy and let us know. We'll be glad to send you guys some catalogs so you can see some of the products. But they have, servo valves with indicators, servo valves without them, and different flow rates. And then all the servo valves are 2-wire valves where they're just going to, change your polarity depending on if you needed to open or close them. Next, ball valves are our section valves. Once again, they have different types. And in this example here, we just got a plunger type section valve that's going to open and close, allow your flow out. See that on your left. But on the right, we have a metered bypass one. And what's unique about this is that if you say you don't have a rate controller, but you want to be able to control your rate, it has this red indicator or red adjustment there you see on the ball valve. And what that's going to do is that you can match your flow that goes out to that section of 6 or 8 or 10 nozzles, whatever it is. You can match that flow goes back to tank. So if you've got 5 gallons a minute going out that section when you're spraying, then when the master valve or when that section valve shuts off, then it will close it, but then divert that same amount of flow, which is adjustable, to go back to your tank. So you can kind of set up a little bit of a rate controller, but not just so that way you're not overpressurizing the system. These section valves can be 2-wire or 3-wire, which means that they're either bipolar or it's going to take a signal to activate them. They have them some with indicators, some without, some with bypass. So quite the selection once again to be able to choose what's going to best fit your need. Next, we're going to talk about the control systems, different control systems that they have to offer for different types of sprayers. They can start out with your basic control boxes, which is switches. We'll get into more detail about that. And then they have basic rate controllers, which would be like a replacement for your serial consoles that used to be out there. It's just a basic rate controller that's just going to control your rate based upon your speed. And then you can upgrade that to a rate controller that's with navigation that's going to do section control, but it's, it don't have any other functionality. It's just strictly a rate controller for liquid. And then finally, the ISOBus capable monitors with different versatility of, whether if it's for a planter or sprayer, it's an ISOBus screen. But they also have the ISOBus rate controller that can be connected to it as well. So to start out here, our regular control boxes, it's just switches. You can control up 3, 5, or 7 section valves. You'll be able to increase and decrease your pressure. You can use it to activate a foamer. They have a foamer option you can add to your sprayer. So you can use the same box to do that. Has a master switch. And then depending on what kind of valves you have, whether if it's a regular ball valve or if it's what kind of servo valve you have, they have cables and harnesses to be able to go to all that. You can also add in a pressure gauge. It could be digital. It could also be analog. If you want to step up to a standard rate controller, they have 2 different options. You have a basic model and a more advanced model, the Bravo 180 and the Bravo 350. These are your standard rate controllers. And basically the difference is that the Bravo 180 and the Bravo 350, they're both going to control your rate based upon your speed by controlling the servo valve. But the Bravo 350 is going to be able to give you a little bit more inputs, a little bit better readout out on the screen. You're going to be able to, the Bravo 180 can shows your actual rate and your speed. That's all that it shows you at one time. Where the Bravo 350 is going to have your actual rate, your target rate, how fast you're driving, the gallons per minute that you're flowing through your whole boom, the pressure. You can add a tank level sensor to it to let you know how full your tank is. And then you can also add in, it's going to show you your boom width of how wide you're spraying. The speed that can be entered in there is going to be a NEMA stream. So you can just get a GPS speed sensor to be able to plug it in there to get your speed. You can input job data or output job data, sorry, on a RS-232 connection. You can also input a master switch. So if you have a switch on your control handle or a foot switch in your cab to activate your master switch, or maybe even a lift switch out there on your toolbar, that can activate the master switch to turn on your ball valves. The servo valve control, you'll have manual control, or it's going to control it automatically to control your rate. And then if you see here down at the bottom, they've added in another switch box. And this other switch box has actually got outputs. If you need something to control hydraulic boom functions, or a hydraulic cylinder to raise up and down your main transom or something, if you need that capability, they do have the box to do that. The section valves, depending on what kind of section valves you have, will depend on what controller you need. The master switch, so you can have if you don't have an external master switch, you can have it on just a switch there on your console to activate the master switch. And then you can output your job data to a USB if you want to take it into SMS or some other type of software. You'll be able to output your job data onto a USB drive. And you can also import settings and stuff like that from one machine to another. Next, we'll step up to the rate controller with GPS. You'll add a receiver to it. You get an actual screen as applied map with navigation, so you'll be able to set an A/B line to know where you've been, know where you sprayed. By adding navigation and GPS to it, it gives you section control based upon your boom sections or the number of sections you have. It can control servo valve to control your rate, and like you add your flow meter just like you do on any other system. Then we can step up instead of being a serial console or one that's not dedicated strictly to sprayers. They do have their ISOBus virtual terminal. It comes in two models, the Delta 80 and Delta 70. The biggest difference between them is the size. The Delta 80 is a little bigger, got a bigger screen than the Delta 70, but the capabilities between the two of them are identical. Once again, you have a USB port for data transfer. You're also able to upload prescription maps for variable rate or shut off or whatever you may need a prescription for. You can job export your files as a shape file. That can then be broadcasted over top of a Google Earth map instead of just a blank screen. Has that capability. As far as guidance patterns go, they do have, you can create boundaries. You can do straight A/B lines, adaptive curves with auto steering, and then pivot auto steering, or to go around for a pivot or what have you. And then they have the function of they offer joysticks to be able to pull in aux ins, maybe for your hydraulic functions or a master switch or whatever you might want to do. And then, or if you don't want to use a virtual switch or something else, you could use like your lift switch or a master switch, a foot switch to tell it when you're spraying. That's what the external master switch input's for. Auto steer, they do have a electric auto steer function that bolts to your steering wheel. And then different levels of GPS, whether if it's going to be your basic WAS signal that will be corrected. That's your Atlas 300, or it could step up to different levels of a Novatel receiver that is going to be able to give you GPS correction. You can also bring in third party. The third party GPS will have to be a NEMA string coming into the back of the display. So being that they have an ISOBUS terminal, they have a module, it's an IBX 100, and it can be programmed to do different functions or different things for you. So the first one we're going to discuss here is ISOBUS hydraulic. That allows using this hub, and then you can on screen be able to control your boom functions up and down, your wings, or if you have some sort of a hydraulic function, you can use this as inputs and outputs to be able to control those solenoids. This also gave them the capability of being able to offer a boom leveling control system. So you'll be able to go through the field and have radar sensors or ultrasonic sensors that's going to be reading your boom height and control that and maintain a spray height for you going through the field. This also gave them the opportunity to do a trailed implement track control or a steering system for your trailed application steering hitch. That way you can be able to maintain your steering for your hitch as you pull implements to the field. They've spent quite a bit of time also in the orchard industry. So they have several systems for mounted pull type or self-propelled orchard sprayers. And these are be able to control your rate. If you guys aren't familiar with orchards, they usually shut off right and left, but you can also break it down more. They have built specific manifolds strictly for orchard systems. So it can be something as basic as left and right, or you can add your regulatory valve to be able to control your pressure or a dump valve. And this can all be done with basic controls of just your left and right turning off and on, or you can step up to another switch box, just more advanced, to add more sections. So if you want to be able to shut your left side down for shorter and smaller trees, just a basic switch box that allows you to have that capability. Well, then the Bravo 180 and Bravo 350 serial rate controllers, they can also be converted over, or the software is different from row crop to orchards, but it can be set up to run a orchard system as well. So the main difference between them is that the 180 can only do section valves that are motorized, where the Bravo 350 can do motorized valves or on and off solenoids to be able to control that flow. And secondly, the Bravo 350 has the capability of pulling in ultrasonic sensors. So that way, at the end of the orchard, you can the ultrasonic sensor will detect when a tree is there or not, and it'll automatically shut it off at the end of your pass if there's no tree. The next one is, since they are ISOBUS, if you can jump up to the ISOBUS virtual terminal that they offer, you can also put in the IBX 100 and put orchard software in it. So it allows you to do the same thing as the Bravo 350s and the 180s, except it's ISOBUS. And it gives you the capability of doing up to six sections or automatic with ultrasonic sensors. That's the max you can do, is 6 ultrasonic sensors or 3 sections per side for different heights of trees as you're going through your orchards. This picture here is, if you go to the website, ARAG's website, you can go and look at, this is an example of a layout of a system. Gives you a really good just overview of how to connect into different functions of the machine. Next is a pretty cool system they have. It's an ISOBUS multi-row. For people who aren't familiar with this is a pretty wild sprayer. I've been fortunate enough to be on one out in New York. So this is a pull type sprayer. They pull through an orchard, and it goes over top of 2 different rows of trees, as you can kind of see in the picture here. But this ISOBUS multi-row gives the capability and functionality to be able to adjust your flow for a rate control for multiple rows at one time as you're spraying your orchards. Something new out for this year is the Deep Ripper. This is for tillage equipment. So this is going to for your ripper is going to allow you to control your depth and to make sure that you stay level as you're going through the field. So it uses a laser interface on the back of the tractor. You may have to get one if it doesn't have one equipped on it. And then it adjusts your ripper or your tillage equipment as you're going through the field. They've also have got some planting or air seeder equipment. The air seeder stuff is got some dry or granular control for your dry fertilizer if you have that. It also will control your product that's going out to your seeds or out your tubes for your air seeder. And it has the capability of adding liquid control into it as well. So it's a very multifunctional controller. On the planter side of things, for your regular corn planter, 30-inch or whatever planter, they do have they offer also an isobus system, and that's going to tie into your seed sensors that's already on the planter. You can utilize those, but they also offer some electric motors for your drive for individual planter drive units, and then they have granular electric drive units to control your granular fertilizer coming out to your planter as well. If you're not using granular, they do have multi-flow. So this here is to monitor your liquid flow for your planter, for your side-by-side or 2x2 or even in furrow. It can be configured in a couple different ways. So with the Orion 3 flow meters, the individual row flow meters, you can put a flow meter on every row unit. And then you can also add a section valve or a valve onto it to have individual rows shut off. But the flow that's coming out of that flow meter individually can be adjusted with it's like a multiple orifice component that allows you to change the amount of flow that's going to each row manually by going out and adjusting it yourself if you want to try different flow rates. Then the multi-flow option is it's a flow meter bank of 4 flow meters in it that can go to 4 different rows. So instead of having, wiring and harnesses going to every row unit, this puts a bank of 4 flow meters for 4 different rows and can give you your feedback, what you're flowing through that. And then you could adjust with the variable orifice on the other side of it as well. And lastly, the spreader control. They do have a dry spreader for your spreader box. It allows you to control your belt speed. It can be a gate spreader or a belt spreader that can control either one. A gate spreader, you're going to control an electric actuator to control your gate height. Obviously, your belt spreader is going to be controlling your spreader speed or your belt speed. And then you can monitor your speed of your spreader plates down below as well. Spreader disc. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to your capstan or ARAG person. We're still here. Nothing's changed. And we'd be glad to answer any questions. If, like I said earlier, if you're looking at wanting to get a catalog of some of our products, once again, reach out to your representative. We can get one sent to you so you can have that. And then the website is very informative as well. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for being patient this morning as I found out that a tree fell on a power line down the road. I got it fixed and up and running. So thank you guys. Have a safe fall, have a safe harvest, and looking forward to seeing you.